Hello and welcome to another episode of The Kid Stays in the Podcast. I'm your host, Trey Cooper, and joining me today is...
Sam Cooper.
Sam Cooper?
It's the look, man, I completely forgot to think of a name, and you rushed me into it.
Sam Cooper is just your uncle's name.
No, but Sam is the name of the lead actor in this.
I think we need to actually cut this bit for real.
No, I'm not going to cut the bit.
I don't like it. It's always bad. It gets worse every week.
But it's my only bit.
We are aware. But maybe this will help push you forward.
It'll be
when
good.
one bit dies, God throws another one out the window or something.
It'll be really good next time.
I bet. Well, you'll get to do it because we're going to record another show right after this.
I know.
So let's see how good it's going to be.
It's going to be great.
All right. Well, welcome back, folks. We are going to be discussing Avatar, The Way of Water. It's the sequel to James Cameron's original Avatar, which came out a short 13 years ago.
13 whole years. I was 2.
Yeah, Solomon was a mere 2-year-old bebe whenever this movie came out. He didn't even see it at the theater.
Mm-mm.
He was too young to take, and those 3D glasses kept slipping off of his bulbous little head.
My bulbous little head. It seems hurtful.
So, have you've seen Avatar since then, right? But I'm sure, probably not. Haven't sat down and watched it recently, but I know if you've been over to my dad's house, it's always playing.
Yes, I know. Definitely. I have seen it, but I was not enough to remember a whole lot.
Yeah, so it's not the kind of movie where you've been watching it on repeat since you were a little kid and you've just been dying to see the new one.
Waiting for James Cameron to create the new one. No.
Yeah, so whenever I saw the movie initially, I was definitely one of the people who thought it was amazing. I was irate that there were so many critics and nerds out there that we were calling it a ripoff of Dances with Wolves and, just generally saying that it was a not very good sci-fi movie or whatever, or movie in general. I did have some issues, some script issues, but they didn't matter to me because I just thought the world was so fun and the special effects and everything were so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I actually hate to use the word special effects because it's not really... obviously, that is what they're using to create this world, but
they're super special effects.
It's not even that. We're talking about world building here, right? Just in a level that nobody had been able to do before.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read a great sci-fi novel or a fantasy novel, you don't tell the author how great his his mental special effects were. We're talking about great world building here. And the fact that you had to use special effects to kind of build that world, sure. But I thought that the world of Pandora was just so unique, and so unique might be a little bit of a stretch. What are you making that face for?
Just the silliest thing I think I've ever heard in my whole entire life.
What?
You don't want to refer to them as special effects because it's beyond that. It was the world that he created. That's how it is with everything that uses special effects. Are you talking about Star Wars then? You don't talk about their special effects? It's just about the world?
I think it's really dumb for an entire review just focuses on how good the special effects are, or hey, the script is terrible, but the special effects are really good.
It wasn't going to be the entire review was going to be that.
Not ours, but a lot of the other ones are. It's like when you go online, go to Rotten Tomatoes or a Metacritic or an aggregate site and just read the one-sentence blurb for every single review, and almost all of them are like, once again, James Cameron with his all, stunning special effects and blah, 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 blah. And it's not that they aren't really good. I'm just saying this is about building a world, and that's what was amazing about Pandora. It wasn't just that the special effects that created it were good.
Okay. Well, it was just sounded so silly to me when you're just like, it's not just the special effects. I don't want to use that. I don't want to just only use that term.
That's not what I was saying. I wasn't saying that I don't want to use the term special effects. It's just that isn't what...
That's not what made the movie great.
You can have great special effects that do nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In service of something really boring.
I agree.
So, anyway, when I saw that Avatar movie, I saw it the way you're supposed to see it. I saw it in IMAX. We drove several hours out of town because there was no IMAX in our little town then, even though we were living in California. Saw it in IMAX in 3D, blown away. I don't know that I'd ever seen a 3D movie before, honestly.
Really? I mean, I sure hadn't.
That's actually not true. I lied about myself. But ironically, I actually saw the 3D movie that James Cameron made when he was inventing the 3D to use for Avatar, which was Aliens of the Deep, I think it was called, or Aliens of the Abyss. I think Aliens of the Deep. It was a documentary. It's a 35-minute documentary.
It's fun.
About him going to like the deepest parts of the ocean. And he funded that expedition and, shot the movie. And yeah, it was in that 3D. So I had seen it that one time before. Many years before Avatar came out. But anyway,
okay.
Long story short is I thought it was great. I loved it. I was a very, very loud defender of it for a long time. But what isn't it's impossible to argue with is that it eventually did leave the zeitgeist. You know what I mean?
Yep.
There's not a lot of folks dressed up like Avatar at Comic-Con.
Yeah, no Navis be walking around PAX.
Yeah. And so, yeah, you can't deny that while it was the highest grossing movie of all time, its cultural impact was not
lasting.
Yeah, it wasn't like a Star Wars or, something like that.
Well, yeah, and in its defense, Star Wars had six movies probably back then.
Yeah, but I mean, Star Wars was already a cultural moment just after the very first one.
Okay.
And then, yeah, that first trilogy. So, didn't matter how many movies there were.
Okay.
But yes, I do think that waiting 13 years, and it wasn't just because he was just sitting around twiddling his thumbs, but having an audience wait 13 years for a sequel for a first movie that was very much a setup movie is going to take some of the air out of your lungs. I do think that if these movies would have come out back to back, then it would have had more of a cultural impact. You know what I mean? As we got to know the characters better, they are kind of shallow characters, especially in the first movie. And I also think that might have affected some of the reviews that we saw for the second movie in a positive way, but putting a 13-year burden on top of what is essentially just a gorgeous summer action adventure movie,
Yep.
Too much pressure.
Too much, yeah, yes.
So, do you want to give us, this should be really easy, the classic Solomon Cooper
It's not going to be easy.
Plot synopsis?
That's the problem.
The problem is that your brain doesn't seem to know how to
I just don't
form
understand.
a synopsis.
I don't, yeah, I know. I'm trying to give like a summary.
No, a synopsis. They're very similar. I don't think you know how to do a summary that well either.
I do.
You make it short, but you include too many extraneous details that aren't important, and then not enough.
Okay, I actually think I have this in the bag.
This should be really easy.
I think I do have this in the bag.
It's a very simple story.
Okay. Bad guys attack the Na'vi.
Oh, I just got attacked by my microphone. Sorry. Go ahead.
Just like the Na'vi. Bad guys get attacked by the Na'vi.
Bad guys get attacked by the Na'vi?
Na'vi get attacked by the bad guys is what I meant. And they have to move to the water, far away.
They have to move to a walk to the water?
They have to move to the water, the islands next to the water.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have included who the bad guys are.
They are the government from last movie, but now they're Na'vi.
Okay, so the humans, the sky, as they are called in Na'vi, the sky people. If you remember from Avatar 1, at the end, they all leave the planet, right? They beat them in the war. They all leave the planet, go back to Earth or wherever.
A few stay.
And just a couple stay. But this movie starts off essentially with Jake Sully, and played by in mocap by Sam Worthington.
That's me. That's my name, Sam. Sam. That was me.
Oh my gosh. And then his wife Zoe Saldana, whose name I can never remember. They now have a bunch of children. The intro is very quick setup that they have a family now. It's like, hey, look, we have a big giant family with 4 kids.
Yep.
And then shortly thereafter, after
what
that
are all
setup,
their names?
The Sky People return. And they are out to get old Jake Sully.
They are mad. And now they're not even Sky People. They're blue.
Yes. So this was a fun twist. I normally wouldn't like something like this. So was it Colonel Quaritch?
Yeah. It's a weird name.
Stephen Lang's character. He was the evil, military guy in the first movie.
Bad
but he
guy.
dies. He dies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out that they stored his memories and that of several other of his gung-ho evil Marine cohorts, and they have put them into the bodies of a bunch of avatars. So we still have avatars in this Avatar movie.
We do.
And yeah, so he's getting hunted by now a vengeful Colonel Quaritch, who is wanting to get revenge because he killed him and because, well, they want to take over this planet once and for all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, do we need to go beat by beat through this movie? I don't think that's really necessary.
No, we never need to go beat by beat through a movie.
Yeah. I would like to say that James Cameron is somebody who you don't bet against usually, as far as like his movies being profitable, or exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But James Cameron isn't like a Spielberg, or I'm trying to think of somebody who's another person who does like action movies, but then they also do like deeper dramatic films. I would say that Cameron just does blockbusters, but not like Michael Bay style. You know what I mean? Like old school when they were good.
Yes. Big, giant, good, fun for the family action.
A lot of
movies.
spectacle always.
Yep.
I mean, you're saying yep. Can you name another Can you name another James Cameron movie?
Avatar 1.
Name another one.
Way of Water.
Name a non-Avatar related James Cameron movie.
Creatures of the Deep.
That doesn't count.
Look, man, I just gave you 3, and you are trying to go against me.
So you haven't seen anything.
Mm-mm.
That's embarrassing. So you're just agreeing with me for no reason.
Maybe I have.
Terminator, Titanic, Aliens.
Seen Aliens.
There you go. Probably hated it.
I didn't love it.
You don't like Aliens?
Not really.
Do you know which one Aliens is?
It's the second one.
And why do you not like that one? It has more action in it.
Look,
for your
I don't need
ADHD
action, Dad. I watch.
adult brain.
I'm glad that you said I had ADHD. I appreciate that.
You don't have ADHD.
You don't know that.
We don't. He doesn't have it. I want to let everybody know.
We don't know.
I wouldn't be mocking his illness.
That's not true. You would.
That's not true.
You would mock me for having ADHD.
Anyway, so you don't have.
I don't
really
need only action for fun.
I'm just saying you haven't seen any other James Cameron movies besides Aliens, and for some reason you don't like it.
It's just not my favorite thing in the world. I enjoyed it.
Anyway, well, you get the idea.
Turn into a snake?
You get the idea that James Cameron, the kind of movies he makes, right? Even Titanic, which you could say is a historical drama, one of the huge things that made it what it is the replica of the Titanic itself using special effects, and then of course the sinking of the Titanic.
Yes.
Which, by the way, that special effect I think is not aged well at all.
Really?
But yeah, so going into this movie, I wasn't really, I had lost hype for Avatar probably about 10 years ago. You know what I mean?
Wow, 3 years hype is pretty good though.
But I was still excited about like getting hyped. And once the trailer started coming out, I did start getting hyped to the point where we were like, we are going to go to a middle of the day screening the day it comes out.
Yeah, as soon as I got out of school,
yeah, drove
straight to the movie theater.
And I was nervous about the movie being so long.
Yeah, it's a really long movie, and I was also just as scared. You know how susceptible I am to sleep.
Yeah, especially in the middle of the afternoon.
Yeah.
But yeah, once again, this is like James Cameron just like working his magic. The script is still kind of flimsy. The dialogue definitely still feels like it's from an 80s, blockbuster movie. But it doesn't really matter because, the world building and the setup is so grounded and so thought out that even though, yes, you could say it's all cliche, you know what I mean? Before we have a rainforest movie that's about indigenous rainforest tribes, and now we're basically like looking at like islander tribes, you know what I mean? It's obviously modeling after some of these things. But
who cares?
Yeah.
It's all really, really fun and
gorgeous.
And gorgeous. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous movie.
Yeah, why don't you just say how good the special effects are?
The special effects in this movie really made it.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and hear from our sponsors, and we'll get back and finish up our discussion of Avatar: Way of Water.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Welcome to One Star Rewind, a new podcast about those dreaded one-star reviews that every business owner hates to receive, but yet every customer loves to read. During this podcast, we will peel back that one-star review to better understand how it happened, when it happened, and what the business owner is doing after receiving that one-star review. This podcast will be about love, hate, and laughter. On One Star Rewind, we will meet with real business owners who will tell their stories and how they do rely on reviews for their business. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or download us at roguemedianetwork.com. Please subscribe, but only rate and review for not a one-star review. Join us each time for a new review and a new story.
Frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hey, I'm Zach,
And I'm Mike.
and we have a fantastic new podcast to tell you about. Bros, Foes, and Heroes. It's the two of us looking into the world of comics, breaking down some characters that you may have never heard of, and some that are just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, so Zach comes up with a character each time, and I go into it just completely blind. I don't know who this person is or what their abilities are or anything, and basically I guess we kind of go over their origin story and just some of the ridiculous stuff that maybe, especially Golden Age stuff.
Oh, Golden Age stuff is always the best, and we will make sure to highlight all of the shenanigans and just absolute weirdness of everything.
Yeah, that's right. So subscribe today and follow us on Instagram at Bros Foes Heroes.
And if you don't, I know where you live. Not really, but please subscribe.
Frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about frozen heroes. Gonna tell you about.
What are we doing here, Rusty? What are we going to do?
Yep, we're doing the King of the Hill rewatch podcast.
King of the Hill
Yes, sir.
Rewatch Podcast. Yeah, so we're going to go through one episode at a time. Come along for the ride with us.
Come check it out.
And give me a good like Dale Gribble quote to go out on. Wingo!
Yeah, Wingo.
Wingo!
Wingo.
All right, well join us for the King of the Hill Rewatch Podcast.
Deep in the heart of Texas, that drinks his brew and he spits his chew. Deep in the heart of Texas, the TV blares but no one cares. Deep in the heart of Texas, here we go.
Welcome back to the Kid Stays in the Podcast and our discussion of Avatar: Way of Water. So yeah, it like even though like you said this movie does have like a lot of like very classic writing things in it or cliches.
Yeah.
It all feels so like genuine and like really wholesome, you know? It's all about like a fun or not a fun it's about a family, you know, and seeing how all the people or how all the people in a family are working together and how it's hard, you know? You got to be firm and you got to be kind though. And it's just really fun watching an alien family go through the same struggles as us, a human family.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what really, for those that are wondering, there is a lot of different action beats at different parts of this movie.
And they're awesome.
And they're all great. But the crux of this movie really is about a family being displaced, right? Jake Sully's family has to leave, or they feel like they need to leave the jungles because otherwise they're going to exterminate all the villages. So they flee and decide to hide out amongst the water peoples.
Which is kind of rude if you think about it. They're like, oh, we don't want our people to get burned down all their villages. We're going to let these villages get burned down.
Well, they assume that no one's going to know where they went.
That's, yeah.
because we find out later that poachers have actually started getting into the waters, but so far the quote unquote sky people haven't ventured this far, and so I think they think they're going to be safe.
They're not.
But there is a lot of odd parallels to me. Not odd parallels, because some of them are really basic. That's kind of what he likes to. James Cameron likes to keep things simple when it comes to characterization.
And honestly,
you know what
I
I mean?
appreciate that.
Yeah.
We don't need more.
But yeah, as I as somebody who grew up like as a missionary kid, where we were always going to like different tribes and villages, there was a very, very familiar element to when they go there and like his kids are kind of smart mouthing and he's like, "Shut up, and you're disrespecting the chief and their ways." I mean that really, honestly, that was like
Relatable.
years like 10 to 18 of my life was like that. But yes, it was really well done. I thought the dynamic between the father trying to keep his family from offending these people that he needs to take them in so they can stay protected. I mean, the entire idea was that he's trying to keep his kids protected.
Yes. And his family. His whole family protected.
But I would like to say that I thought that they did a really great job with the children. You had the oldest son who gets the least amount of personality other than he's the straight arrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's the good straight A. He's actually basically just me, honestly.
Okay.
It's the good straight A kid doing all the hunting and all the hard work for the family.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Exactly like you.
Yep.
Then they had the younger son who is the rebellious one, who has a bad temper. You know what I mean? He's always getting in trouble.
He's like the middle child that, even though he feels like what he's doing is good, he's still not getting appreciated.
Yeah. And then we have Carrie, who is played by Sigourney Weaver, obviously de-aged to be 15.
She actually looks like she's 100 years old. No.
And honestly, shockingly good performance there. I mean,
was.
All of the performances, the mocap performances are great. I'm not going to, that was rude of me. See what I did? See how I inserted a special effect word in there instead of just letting people be who they are? The performance across the board are really good. But Sigourney Weaver, I read an article that said that she actually went back to high school for a little while so she could get back into the rhythms and whatever of how 15-year-old girls talk. Sigourney Weaver's in her 70s. And she was great. She did not sound like, you could tell that sometimes you could hear the Sigourney Weaver elements in her voice, but for the most part, never would have guessed. Did I say moist?
You said Morse part.
For the most part, I did not hear. It didn't sound like a 73-year-old woman. Let's just say
it did not. But there was something off for me, and there's a reason I didn't have a crush on her the whole time.
There's something off for you.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something off for you.
I don't know. Just the way she looked just threw me off a bit.
But that didn't look like she was a 73-year-old woman.
She didn't look like she was a 73-year-old woman.
So you're just trying to say that you didn't have a crush on the girl alien?
I had a crush on other girl aliens.
Oh, Took, the 6-year-old?
No. The chief's daughter.
Ooh, low rent Moana?
They're not even this. You're racist.
How's that racist?
Your alien is saying she's low rent Moana.
Well, I was just trying to say that I thought the dynamic between all the kids and the way that they were characterized, while it is a little bit shallow, I thought it was really well done.
It was all great. We also didn't mention the youngest daughter.
Took, yeah, because she doesn't really have her literal character trait is be the youngest daughter who always is getting in trouble.
Be the MacGuffin.
Not a MacGuffin.
Sorry, that's not what a MacGuffin
nope.
is. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm really actually embarrassed now.
She's always like being brought on missions that she shouldn't be for no reason whatsoever. Also, your jacket is like really, really like crinkly. So if you could stop crunching it all up.
I got really embarrassed, so I had to curl up into a ball.
But yeah, they keep bringing the youngest daughter, who's like 5 years old, on all these dangerous missions, and it's kind of silly. But
then she gets caught and then kidnapped
over and over again. That keeps happening to her.
Define a MacGuffin.
I'm not going to define a MacGuffin right now. We only have like 10 minutes left on the show.
The people who are listening want to learn.
Why don't you define a MacGuffin?
Well, now I don't want to. I thought it was like the motivating thing that they need to get.
It is kind of, but it doesn't really matter what it is, right? It could be anything. It
Yeah.
could be a Infinity Stone. It could be whatever.
Yeah, so I feel like the kid is kind of a MacGuffin.
Why are you trying to do that? You do this
Because
every,
I embarrassed myself.
every time that you're wrong. And you know you're wrong. Then you're going to waste a bunch of time with us having to go back and
Well,
you explain that you're right.
I just want people to know that I know what I'm saying.
No, in the first movie, the MacGuffin or whatever would have been like the unobtainium. Yeah. And the girl is not the main crux of this movie at all.
I guess it has to be like the main thing. Yeah, right.
Just anybody who gets kidnapped in a movie once doesn't get to be the MacGuffin.
But she got kidnapped like 3 times.
With everybody else. Anyway, you already know that you're wrong, so now look, we wasted 4 more minutes.
We didn't waste 4 minutes talking about that.
That was 27 minutes, actually.
Okay.
Let's get into the kind of
Okay.
weird thing that this movie does, which is, so the first movie introduces the unobtainium pretty much right off the bat, right? That's what they want. This movie doesn't really explain, other than they want to take over the planet, what the reason these poachers are trying to like kill these space whales for until very well into the movie.
Yeah.
And considering what the reveal is there, which this is a full spoiler podcast, so I'm going to tell you because it's not a twist, seemed a little bit odd. I feel like it should have been introduced a little bit earlier.
Sooner, yeah.
Because the setup for this movie is a little bit janky. It kind of goes on for a little while. I was never bored during the setup, but they're sort of setting up the family stuff, which they should have done.
Yep.
But they're also setting up the military stuff or whatever. I think we would have been perfectly fine with having Colonel Quaritch be like, "Hey, so what are we back down on this space rock for anyway?" And then they're like, "Oh, because we found a way to cure death."
Well, but they are there to murder the family, and then they just find out.
But they're there to murder the family because the space people want to come back, and they don't want. He's the leader of the rebellion.
Oh,
the whole entire army of Earth didn't come down to murder Jake Sully just because they don't like him.
I thought
They're like terraforming the entire planet.
I thought it was purely for revenge. Is the whole reason that those certain group was there.
That's why they got them to do it, but that's not why General what's her name, who's
That's
building
true.
that entire terraforming thing, brought them to kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we find out that these very sentient, very smart, very soulful. I'm gonna keep saying "very" in front of a word.
That's good.
It honestly, they go so hokey. It's like, and don't get me wrong, I love this about James Cameron. I love how hokey he goes in these movies. It feels so sincere.
I know, that's why I love it.
Even though it's cheesy.
That's what I was saying. It felt so real and genuine.
Who cares if it's cheesy? You can't have a little bit of cheese in your blue alien movie.
Okay.
But if you would have grown up when I did in like the 80s, early 90s, late 80s, I didn't grow up in the 80s. I'm not old.
Grew up the whole 80s.
No, I just knew about the 80s. Heard about them. Someone said, "Hey, there was an 80s once," and I was like, "Cool."
Okay.
Anyway, late 80s, early 90s.
It's just so cringy.
There was a lot of Save the Whale stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure whenever James Cameron was probably in early adulthood, that was a huge amount of what conservation was. It was all about Save the Whales. There's even a whole Star Trek movie about saving the whales.
Yep. And
That's how big of a thing it was.
Now we have a whole Avatar movie about saving the whales.
Yes. At a time well past, though, like that Star Trek movie was made during mid Save the Whales time. So anyway, you'd get these marine biologists. They'd be on TV, waxing poetic about how smart whales are and how big their brains are and how they take care of their calves and how they cry whenever someone dies. You know what I mean? They're just like, I'm not going to say they're wrong. I love whales.
We
I'm
all love
all
whales.
about saving them. But you know what I mean? They're a little bit over anthropomorphization of
whales.
This movie, the scientist goes so much further. Like whenever the guy who's like sympathetic to the whales, but even though for some reason he's working with poachers who murder them.
Well, he's the smartest one. Where else is he gonna go?
But do you not think it was funny whenever he's like, so he says, he's like, the guy's like, "Oh, how do you know?" Like he's like, they're intelligent, and he's like, "Oh yes, probably more intelligent than us." And he's like, "Oh, how do you know that?" And he's like, "Oh, look at this part of their brain." He's like, "This part means that they have their own language. This part means they write poetry." He's like, "This part means they have their own religions. They're very spiritual, much more spiritual than people." And I'm like, how the fudge can you tell all of this?
I did not find it that funny now, but from hindsight, it is quite silly.
I mean, like, I didn't mind it.
I mean, I loved it, like I said.
But
Or
yeah,
like
so
we
you
both said.
find out that, like, much like with like a sperm whale, where they would just want to take all the the oil or whatever from them, and then they would just leave the rest of the body.
Yeah.
They only want this fluid from a certain gland that they have, but that fluid stops human aging entirely. And we don't find this out till like 3/4 of the way through the movie.
Yeah.
And it's because it's not the movie's motivating plot. So I think that he didn't really think that we needed to know about it, but it was just a very interesting, sudden development. But this is supposed to be the first part of I guess, two more trilogies.
Yeah.
So
Two
it could
more
be,
trilogies.
So this could just be a nice setup to how we get there. You know what I mean? And then when we watch the next movie, it'll make a lot more sense because that's explaining why. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I will say, once this movie, so I was having a great time the whole time. Like 3 hours flew by.
Oh, true. It was 3 hours?
3 hours and 10 minutes, I think.
No way.
Yeah.
Are you sure? No, I feel like I looked it up and it was like 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Do you want me to look it up again and you get another slap?
No, I don't want to get slapped. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry for arguing.
So
I just thought it was 3 hours.
yes, 3 hours and 10 minutes.
It's really long.
Didn't feel that long to
Didn't
me.
feel
I was like ready to keep watching. I'd have kept watching for a couple more hours.
He's got it prepared.
So this movie, like I said, the movie was flying by for me. I was having a great time. But once, I hate this, like I said, I hate to say but, as if the other parts weren't good. I was having a great time with the cheesy dialogue and the corny stuff. But once we hit that third act, this movie just goes so far into overdrive of fun, huge, creative action scenes that was all over.
It was insanity.
Yeah, if I was like not one, I mean, I already was won over by the movie. I think I'm not gonna take credit for it because another critic said it, but I totally agree with it. They said I couldn't tell if Avatar was winning me over while I was watching it because I was having a good time, but I didn't know if I cared about anybody. I was still like kind of in my head, and like it wasn't until a giant space whale is asked by somebody like, "What happened to you?" And then he goes like in whale talk. It's like the papyrus font, at the bottom says, "It's too painful to talk about." And it's not. He doesn't talk. He doesn't say that, right? It just says it says it in like a subtitle while he's just going like, "More." And I was like, yeah, exactly how I felt. But that third act just. You have the last minute to talk about that third act. No, don't describe it. Just talk about it. Like, how did it make you feel? How did you feel inside?
Nothing. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen and one of the most unique things also like ever. It was like crazier than Lord of the Rings because there's like all this weird sci-fi water traveling items. Well, I didn't want to say what they're called. You said not to describe them.
No, I said you don't have to just describe the whole end of the movie. I was just saying.
That's fair. But yeah, they have like crab
robots
that like people are piloting, and it's just so wacky and crazy and zany.
And all the Navi, the water Navi, are like on
riding
these,
on these. Yeah, they're riding on like these water dragons that are like they're skippers.
flying fish.
Yeah, but it's like a skipper, like you're like popping along it.
Yeah, but like a flying fish does.
Yes, like a flying fish does. And it was just crazy. Dragons flying in the air, water dragons jumping on the water.
And then all ending on a climax of a sinking ship that's like right out of Titanic.
Yep, all of it just insanity. Whenever whales fighting things are just cool.
Oh yeah, and we have a
We do have a giant whale fighting things.
Really cool. We need to go, but like one really cool thing they introduced is the whales used to all fight each other, and so they're all pacifists now, and they're not allowed to kill. So they're all getting murdered by these poachers, but they're not allowed to fight back.
Yep, but one whale.
Yeah, one whale who's an outcast.
He's exiled.
He's exiled because he fought back. He's like, well, I'm already exiled.
He actually didn't fight back though. And the thing, he didn't fight back. He just watched them die or something.
He led them there to attack them.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, look. This is a movie that is so sloppy and sincere. It's like a
sloppy.
puppy. it's a big sloppy. Let me finish my sentence.
Sorry, it just sounded really rude.
It's a big sloppy kiss from a puppy dog.
Okay.
So I'm not going to say that I've had better kisses because it's not. That's not really what you're comparing it to. That was a terrible metaphor. Erase it out of your mind.
That.
Anyway, the point is, I don't care that this movie is flawed. I don't care that the plot kind of is all over the place or that the dialogue is hokey. It's a sincere movie. It's a fun movie. It is so much more unique than most of the blockbusters that we're getting. The fact that like Wakanda Forever has like an 86 and this movie I think dropped down to a 78, quite frankly, is a load of horse poopy. So I'm going to give this movie 9 out of 10, and I don't care if you want to come at me.
What is it about?
What do you mean?
What is the 9 out of 10 out of what?
It doesn't matter. I just said 9 out. We're out of time. I don't have time to think of
9
something.
out of 10 whale poetry.
So you give it 9 out of 10
Yeah,
also?
that's what I was going to give it
9
before.
out of 10 whale poetry. Doesn't make any sense.
Whale poetry.
All right, until
Poetry
next
by
time.
whales.
Poems, you should have said then.
Oh, whale poems. Dang it.
All right, we're out. Until next time. Thanks.
Bye.
Follow us on Instagram at The Kid in the Pick and on RogueMediaNetwork.com.
Until next time.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.